Hi, I'm Jeff Hajek, the owner and founder of Action. This video is part of my lean training system. It was originally released as a DVD a long time ago, but times have changed and the look of some of these LTS videos is now a bit dated. The content is still spot on though, so rather than just discontinue the line, I am posting the majority of each of the 36 videos here, with the remainder available at Action Videos. That's our video service where you can download a wealth of supporting content and watch subscriber-only videos. I recommend subscribing and hitting the notification button if you want to make sure you don't miss any new content. I would also really appreciate if you would hit the like button if this video is helpful and you want to see more content similar to it. The like button helps us get found on YouTube, but it also lets us figure out where you want us to put our future effort. Now enjoy the free version of this video. Welcome to Action Continuous Improvement's overview presentation on how to make improvements during your Kaizen event. I am Jeff Hajek, the owner and founder of Action. I like to start each presentation by going over the objectives of what I hope you learn from it. To make improvements properly, it is important to know the tools that are available to you. There's also a structured approach that can make your improvement efforts more effective. You will also find that your improvement efforts return a lot more bang for the buck if you have a solid infrastructure in place. One of the most important things is that teams have to trust their leaders. They must know that their bosses are committed to the improvement process. A great way to prove commitment is to have an explicit policy that improvements will not result in layoffs. As you can imagine, it would be hard to generate enthusiasm for Kaizen activity if the payoff was a layoff. Additionally, teams should see that leaders are devoting the necessary time and money to improvements. That's not to say they should throw money at problems, but we don't want teams having to scrape nickels together to get the basic supplies they need. And they should not see leaders abandoning their continuous improvement efforts at the first sign of difficulty. If leaders waffle on their commitment, teams will definitely do the same. A strong lean culture also helps to make individual projects more effective. A large part of creating this culture is to make sure that all employees are well trained on lean principles and continuous improvement tools. The more widespread this training is, the more supportive people outside of the project will be. It should also go without saying that you want this culture created in a positive way. The happier and more satisfied people are, the more likely they are to engage in the process of continuous improvement. And finally, every project should be linked to an overall plan. People need to see an impact from the projects they work on. If the project is aligned with other projects and a strategic plan, that impact is amplified. I should wrap up the slide by noting that there is actually a positive feedback loop going on here. A strong foundation makes a project go better, but effective, well-planned, and well-executed Kaizen projects add to that foundation. People buy into success. When making improvements, it is important to include the whole team in decisions and to make sure that stakeholders also have a voice. I like to demonstrate this concept with a brief exercise. I'll give you the opportunity to pause the video after I have explained it. It works best if you are watching this video as a group. If you are watching alone, just follow along and think about how the exercise would play out. Take some scratch paper and make a grid with 3 columns on it. In the left-hand column, write down numbers from 1 to 10. In the center column, the state column, I would like you to rank order the states shown on the screen from largest to smallest in square miles. Just write the state, no need to guess at the actual size. This is an individual exercise. Do not share your results with anybody else you are watching with. At this time, pause the video until everybody has completed their ranking. Now, let's score our rankings. Here are the actual sizes of each state in square miles. To score your sheet, for each row, count the number of places away your answer was from the correct answer. If you got it right, you get a 0. In this exercise, lower is better. If you got it wrong, regardless of the direction, write down the number of places you are from the correct answer. When you're done with the scoring for each row, tally up your total. Pause the video now until all viewers have completed their scoring. We'll come back to this later and discuss the results. I hope you are getting something valuable out of this video. If you want to get more out of this program, we recommend watching it on Valaction Videos. You'll be able to watch the entire video, mostly ad-free, and view subscriber-only programs. You'll also have access to a load of continuous improvement downloads. I am a firm believer that a large part of the success you have in a Kaizen event comes from having a positive attitude. Pessimism tends to stifle attempts to improve. If you are so inclined, you can even make a game of creating positive energy. Set up a jar that people have to drop some change into each time they say something can't be done. It is the same basic concept as a swear jar. Use the proceeds to buy donuts or something similar for the team. The goal is to get the team focusing on dealing with issues in an optimistic way. If somebody makes a suggestion, shooting it down results in the clinking of money into the can. You'll soon see people talking about what has to be done to make the idea work. If it is impractical, they will run into implementation barriers. But at least they will put some thought into it. Here is a case study in positivity. Look at the statistics of this NBA player. Over the course of his career, he missed well over 16,000 shots. He was on the losing end of nearly 300 games, and in 26 of those games, he missed a shot as time expired, a shot that would have put them over the top, sealing the loss. Sounds pretty bad, right? Well, these are the statistics of Michael Jordan, arguably the best basketball player of all time. My point? Success has a lot of bumps along the way. You will make mistakes. The more improvement activity you attempt, the more misses you will have. But if you don't take the shots because of fear of failure, you won't have the wins either. When you get into the improvement phase of your Kaizen event, you should have quite a bit of information available to you to help you get started. During the process walk and subsequent data analysis, you should have gathered up a wealth of information. You may also have information from existing projects that other people were already working on. As you get started, keep in mind that there is a bit of overlap between phases. During your data analysis efforts, you may or may not have been able to identify root causes. Some will be blatantly obvious. Others will require a bit of experimentation as you start to look for improvements. Just make sure that you do have a good handle on the root cause as you start to make the leap from analysis to improvement. You also want to make sure that you fully understand the big picture before you start making improvements. I recommend taking a quick refresher look at the organization's strategy before making any changes. At least it should be a refresher. Presumably, the Kaizen event was planned with an eye towards the value stream map and a clear understanding of your metrics. But the planners may not be the same people that are making changes. It's never a bad idea to confirm that improvements fit into the big picture plan. One of the things that makes Kaizen events so powerful is that they provide structure to help multiple people work together to solve problems. A big part of this is that teams are able to combine their ideas into something better than each person would come up with on his or her own. People tend to be able to see problems with other people's plans more than they can see them in their own. They're also able to fill in information gaps. And most importantly, a healthy back and forth dialogue gives an idea a life of its own. It begins to mutate as people remove its weaknesses and add to its strengths. Let's take a look back at our exercise results and see how this works out. The reason why I said the exercise works best if you have multiple people working together comes into play now. What I would like you to do is average out the rankings everybody gave for each state. For example, if Pennsylvania was ranked 5th, 6th, and 7th on 3 people's score sheets, rank it 6th on the community score sheet. Do this for all 10 states and list them in order. Note that these rankings will likely have fractions when you do the math. In that case, just put them in sequence. One state may average 4.5 in the rankings, which means that it is thought by the group to be slightly larger than one that averages 4.7. Once they are in ascending order, reset all the rankings from 1 to 10, whole numbers, and score the community sheet as you did the individual ones earlier. Pause the video now and tally up the score sheets. If you are like most groups, it is very uncommon for an individual score to be higher than the group score. And keep in mind that this is not even done with any discussion. If you were allowed to talk about this as a group, even prior to getting the actual sizes earlier, you probably would have been able to come up with an even more accurate list. Someone might know for sure that Oregon is bigger than Washington. Another person may have grown up in New York and knew that it was bigger than Pennsylvania. The point is that collective knowledge nearly always trumps individual knowledge. As part of the Lean training system this video comes from, we offer a variety of Lean Lego training packages. These include our Lean Lego flow simulation, mistake proofing or poka-yoke Lean Lego exercise, and our visual controls and 5S Lean Lego exercise. We've also got an office flow simulation for those not implementing continuous improvement on the shop floor. Click the links in the description below or click on cards that pop up on this video to learn more. We'll also add links at the end. While there is no real step-by-step process to making improvements in the office, I do recommend a general progression. Start out by stabilizing the process. Make it repeatable. Make sure the bugs are ironed out. Get people doing it the same way. Improve the hardware and software you use. Once the process is stabilized, you can look into ways to manage the demand. There are options about how to modify incoming demand. You can get creative in how you respond to the demand that you are unable to flatten out. Once you've gotten your process stabilized and your demand is under control, look into ways to create flow. See if you can get work done start to finish without having it sit in a queue at all. Each of these general steps in the progression has a handful of tools to help you work your way through it. We'll talk about each of them in more detail in later slides. The stabilized tools, 5S, standardization, visual controls, and mistake proofing, all focus on taking variation out of processes. Variation equates to waste. We want everybody doing their processes the same way every time. If there are external factors that are preventing them from doing this, we will want to remove those obstacles. The demand management column shows a variety of tools for making sure that every person has a reasonable workload every day. We don't want people being overworked. We also can't afford to have people sitting idle. We need balance. Of course, all of the work still needs to be done even if we are short-staffed. Daily management, level loading, and having a flexible workforce can go a long way toward being able to adjust staffing to meet fluctuations in demand. The final column, creating flow, is only possible once you have standard processes with ways to manage variation and a good handle on responding to changes in demand. At that point, you are ready to create flow. That means work sits as little as possible. In an ideal situation, work would come in, be continuously worked on, and be completed without ever sitting in a queue. The tools to stabilize your processes are pretty straightforward. We do have detailed videos available for each of these though if you want more information. 5S is a concerted effort to create a workspace that supports the process. 5S stands for Sort, Straighten, Scrub, Standardize, and Sustain. There are also some other variations of those S's. Done right, tools and materials are in the right place whenever needed. Clutter is removed. The area is easy to keep clean, and people maintain it without a lot of effort. The impact is that a rather large amount of waste is removed from the work. In the office, this also means keeping electronic folders neat and organized. Not only does standardization reduce variation, but it also provides a basis for improvement. Once people start doing a process the same way, they share best practices that were not likely previously shared with each other. It also enables improvement. It is hard to make changes that stick if they only apply once in a while. Visual controls use graphics to quickly show what the current condition is and what the standard is. For example, there may be 5 numbered slots for incoming files, with the last 2 colored in red. It will be a simple task to see how many files are queued up and whether the number is higher than it should be. Even more importantly, the visual control should be linked to a specific action when it shows an abnormal condition. Mistake proofing, or poka-yoke, is the art of building quality into a process by preventing errors. Many software programs do this by design. They might limit cities based on the zip code that was entered, or might not process a form until all required fields are filled in. You can also be creative and do things like put a tether on a stapler that is supposed to be near the copier, but always seems to be missing. Poka-yoke devices prevent problems. You can also come up with some near poka-yoke devices that make it harder to make mistakes. Color coding falls into this category. It makes it easier to avoid mistakes, but doesn't physically prevent them. The first of the demand management tools is the concept of takt time. Takt time is simply the required pace of production to meet customer demand. In a nutshell, it means that if you want to hit your targets, you have to process a piece of work every X minutes. When applying takt time, the key is not to let the pace become overwhelming to people. As you develop a new process, the effort you ask of people has to be sustainable. The key to doing that is to keep in mind that takt time is determined independent of staffing. Your customers require the same number of completed work units regardless of how many employees you have doing the process or how long the work takes. It is basically just a math problem. Cycle time divided by takt time gives you the number of people you need on the job. If something takes 22 minutes to do and the takt time is 10 minutes, you'll need 2.2 people. Actually, you need a bit more people than that because no process is 100% efficient. And it would have to round up to 3 if you had no way to share a team member. But regardless of how you were configured, if you ask 2 people to do the work, you'd be overburdening them. Another issue you will face is that takt time doesn't always translate perfectly to the office when a team does several different jobs. An accounting team may, for example, do credit checks, process payments, and handle employee expense reports. An order entry team may manually enter faxed or phone orders, or respond to customer requests for order status or process order changes. I tend to recommend translating this work into a common work unit and tally up the demand. Job A may be 1 work unit. Job B may be 0.75 and Job C may be 1.5. The multiplier is based on cycle time. Job C takes 1.5 times as long as A. Tally up the total of work units based on the demand and figure out how often the team has to complete each work unit. Our daily management module covers this in much greater detail. The other issue with demand in the office is that in many situations it doesn't keep like production on the shop floor does. A phone call won't wait, and walk-in customers may bail if they see an exceptionally long line. If you look at demand in small chunks, you can avoid some of the volatility you would otherwise face. Of course, this means that you have to be able to adjust staffing to account for variations in demand. I think I should reiterate the formulas I mentioned earlier. Takt time is the working time available divided by the customer demand during that window. Working time available is the duration of the shift minus any breaks, startup time, shutdown time, meetings, etc. It is the time when people are actually working. You'll have to use some common sense and decide how you handle overnight weekend demand. Basically, you have to apply it to the bucket in which you expect it to be completed. Again, this is much more complicated than you would see on the shop floor where you might get orders for 500 widgets per week. That yields a nice, clean number. Here is the FTE, or full-time equivalent, calculation written out, assuming 100% efficiency. Again, you have to be creative in how you apply this when you have a variety of types of work and a shared workforce. Another useful way to manage a lean office is to use a Kanban. It is simply a signal to do something, typically to produce something, move something, or purchase something. While the same principle can be used to signal an upstream process to do some work, this example shows how to use it to manage the resupply process. In this case, a Kanban signal is left in a pile of forms. The location in the stack is based on how long the pile takes to use and how long it takes to get replacements. This process can be used for any replenishment, such as printer cartridges or projector bulbs or other expensive items. Let's look at this process in action. In this case, the team uses up forms until they reach the Kanban. They then send the form to their supplier, in this case, the print shop. The team continues to use the forms as the print shop prints new ones. Hopefully, the time it takes to get new forms is low, so there's not a requirement for massive stacks. Note that there are a few forms left over. This is the safety stock, intended to cover the team in the event of a late delivery. The size of the safety stock is dependent upon the reliability of the supplier or the impact of a stockout. The new inventory is placed below the current inventory, and the Kanban signal is replaced at the appropriate level. We have a detailed module that explains more about how to use Kanban than this overview can. Another powerful tool for managing demand is the concept of pull. Pull really doesn't manage the demand coming into the company, but it does provide some stability in how demand is managed within it. The principle is that you don't send work downstream until somebody asks for it. This can be counterintuitive to people. It is difficult to convince them that their operation will become more efficient and effective by not working, because that is what we're asking people to do if their downstream customer does not ask for something. There's a few reasons for this. At its heart, the issue with push, the equivalent of just tossing work over the wall and hoping the person on the other side is ready for it, is that there is no connection between processes. We could be forming up giant piles of work and we would never really know it. There would be no incentive to balance the workload or to help other people out. In most cases, the operator with a large pile of work downstream of them simply slows down their pace. They take it easy because they are ahead and there's nothing else for them to do. With pull, they are asked to stop working. Given a choice between sitting and doing nothing or figuring out how they can help get work flowing again, nearly everybody chooses the latter. Daily management is a tool for balancing the workload with capacity. This tool breaks the day down into milestones, and it projects the workload that is expected to come in during each time bucket between those milestones. Note that in this case, the workload is unbalanced. It shows that there is a large overnight inflow that tapers off throughout the day. Daily management also estimates the work the team can perform during that period. This takes into account schedules, breaks, meetings, etc. This should be updated at the beginning of each day based upon what is on the agenda. The queue is basically an estimate of the backlog based on what you expect to see come in and go out completed. At each milestone, you fill out the actual results and tally out the queue for the rest of the day. The power of this tool is that it lets you identify problems as they occur and investigate. In this case, the delay was due to tardiness. If it was due to a network outage or a particularly onerous problem, that would have been noted. The point is that problems are easiest to identify as they are occurring. It also gets people into the habit of planning, and that means owning and understanding processes. Like many of the tools this video covers with an overview, there is also a full video available in our daily management module. This video comes from Velaction's Lean training system, which takes a module-based approach to learning about continuous improvement. Modules include a PowerPoint presentation and student guides for every video, plus there are many exercises and quizzes as well. There's also a whole host of supporting content in the form of terms in our Continuous Improvement Companion and downloadable articles. Our modules are currently available in our store and as downloads at Velaction Videos. Click the links in the description below or click on the cards that pop up on this video to learn more. We'll also add links at the end. As you might expect, the work in an office tends to be more variable than that on a shop floor. More accurately, the work can't be smoothed out as easily as it can on the shop floor, and it doesn't keep as well as shop floor work does. That means that office leaders need to be creative in how they handle the variation, and one way they can do that is to match staffing to the workload. This chart shows the expected demand for phone orders at a company. As you can see, there is a lot of variation with 3 distinct demand levels. If you can work to smooth out demand, that is the first choice. Restaurants do this with happy hour offers to try to bring the dinner crowd in early. But what if this is not possible, or if it doesn't work to completely smooth out demand? Try variable staffing. If I was running this office, I might try using an unbalanced schedule. I would hire a few people to work Saturday through Wednesday if I wanted a weekend shift. If not, I might have a few people work 10-hour shifts on Monday through Wednesday and 5 hours on Thursday and Friday. It sounds a lot harder to fill that schedule than it actually is. Many people would gladly work a few extra hours during the week to be able to get a jump on the weekend a few hours early. I just recommend looking for volunteers first and making it a somewhat long-term schedule so people can arrange their lives. And also make sure that you're in compliance with local employment law. Another trick is to find another department that can share resources. This would be one that has work that does keep or that has an opposite demand schedule. Be ready for some pushback though. You'll face budgeting challenges or questions about who does evaluations. Don't let administrative barriers trump common sense though. Part-timers and temporary workers also help out with demand variation. And when all else fails, the leadership and support teams can roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty a bit. The principle is not to expect miracles from team members. Workload and capacity is simply a math problem. You don't want teams changing how they work based on how much work they have. Many office teams do a variety of types of work. The tendency is to want to stay on the same task until that pile is completed and then begin the next type of work. The problem with that is that it increases the time it takes for work to move through the system. It also potentially creates a feast or famine situation for downstream customers. This happens primarily when one organization feeds multiple groups. Instead, consider ways to make the workflow a predictable, repetitive pattern. It's not hard to understand how evenness reduces waste. What is the challenge for people, though, is how to overcome the issues that make people want to batch work of the same variety. It might be that to change over time, the time to change from one process to the other is too long. It might take a bit of time to close out all of their programs and open the other files that are needed for a different type of work. It also just might be a personal preference. They get in the groove and want to keep up momentum. Level loading is not easy, but the predictable flow of work does make handling variation much easier. Combining processes is the first of the tools designed to improve flow. Imagine you have a process that involved 3 people. It might be a loan application where the first person is a customer service rep, the second person does the credit check, and the final person does the underwriting and final approval. You'd probably have piles of work between each person, slowing things down. But you also run into other problems. Each handoff requires a startup time, finding the file, reading it, checking the notes for special situations, etc. This is all extra time. If you combine processes, a person would eliminate that startup. Thanks for watching this extended free version of our Lean Training System module video. If you want to watch the whole video, check it out at Valaction Videos. If you want to make sure you don't miss the next LTS video that we post, please be sure to subscribe down below. We also always appreciate likes as it helps us get viewed more and makes us keep adding additional content. Thanks for watching, and best wishes on your continuous improvement journey.